And Canada's Liberal Party has elected Mark Carney as its new leader to succeed Justin Trudeau as the country's next Prime Minister.
Now, according to the final tally, 59-year-old Carney won 85.9% of the ballots cast in the Liberal Party leadership vote.
First place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
Now, Carney soundly defeated his main challenger, Trudeau's former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. The former central banker lost no time in taking a defiant stance against threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. In his victory speech to party supporters, Carney warned that the U.S. under Trump was seeking to seize control of Canada, an effort he said must be defeated.
The Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country. Think about it. If they succeeded, they would destroy our way of life.
As soon as the results were announced, Carney told a boisterous crowd in Ottawa that Trump is attacking Canadian workers, families and businesses.
There's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't.
Now, Carney said Canada will keep retaliatory tariffs in place until the Americans show it respect. Listen to this.
The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
Carney also hit back at Trump for threatening to annex Canada.
America is not Canada. And Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form.
The U.S. president has repeatedly spoken about annexing Canada and thrown bilateral trade into chaos with sweeping tariff actions.
Carney has argued that he is the ideal counter to Trump's disruptions, reminding voters that he led the Bank of Canada through the 2008-2009 financial crisis and steered the Bank of England through the turbulence that followed the 2016 Brexit vote. Now, Carney will take over from outgoing party leader Prime Minister Justin Trudeau over the coming days after he officially resigns from his post. The Governor-General will then invite Mark Carney to form a government.
Now, Trudeau, in a post on social media X, said he is leaving as leader of the Liberal Party with the same belief in hope and hard work as when he started. Delivering a farewell address to party supporters before his successor was announced, Trudeau said, "Canadians face from our neighbour an existential challenge."
Carney will lead the Liberals into the next general elections. Canada must hold elections by October 20th, but Carney could call a snap poll within weeks. Canada's incoming Prime Minister has never served in Parliament nor held an elected public office.
He made a fortune as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs before entering the Canadian Civil Service since leaving the Bank of England in 2020. He has served as a United Nations envoy working to get the private sector to invest in climate-friendly technology and has held private sector roles. All right, to discuss more, Daniel Boardman is joining us live from Toronto. He's a senior correspondent for National Telegraph. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Yes, today Canada had a new prime minister appointed.
Right.
King Carney has been appointed Prime Minister of Canada. He does not hold public office in any way.
Right.
Remember, all other competitors were that showed potential to potentially defeat him were disqualified by the party elites. So this was an appointment. It was a fake race with just, I mean, it's the state of Canadian democracy, but it's totally propped up by Donald Trump right now as, I mean, the thought of electing, I mean, the man describes himself as a European. We're dealing with a European banker who moved his company's headquarters from Canada to America just last year. So he's been part of the take Canadian businesses and move it to the States. He is deeply embedded with the Communist Party of China, deeply embedded in all the unpopular, nonsensical green energy mass migration policies that everyone hates so much. But he does have full support of the Canadian media, which is almost completely nationalized at this point. There's no difference between the CBC, CTV, Global News, any of this. All of them are 24-hour Mark Carney hype stations, which gloss over all his faults and essentially prop him up. Mark Carney has answered no questions from the media that are pre-selected and has cruised into being prime minister. So I will give myself a bit of credit, although it's not the greatest prediction ever. We all called Mark Carney being the Prime Minister of Canada before. I believe I did that when I was in India back there. So Mark Carney has been appointed Prime Minister of Canada. And the only good thing for Canadians is this likely will trigger a quick election. It's kind of funny where you now have Jagmeet Singh who's trying to stop an election. And Mark Carney actually might want to get to an election as soon as possible because, one, he does not hold office right now, so he can't actually sit in the House of Commons. We're in a ridiculous scenario where we have a prime minister now in this country, but we don't have him in Parliament at a time of crisis. It's absurd. So there might be something where he might try and assume emergency powers to deal with Donald Trump to push through his initiatives. And it's likely Jagmeet Singh might give him emergency powers, but it goes twofold. The longer he stays in office, the more likely he is to lose an election to Peter Poilievre. Because his appeal right now is he's a new, fresh face. He could pretend to be an outsider, even though he was the architect of all the failed policies here. And if he calls a snap election, he can say, oh, I value democracy. I'm the new face, yada, yada, yada. But if he stays in power and starts to implement the same things Trudeau did, people will suddenly start to hear him speak, see him for what he is, and then they'll see, oh, this is the same Liberal Party. Then the Conservatives might be up 20 points again. So this is the dilemma he faces.
And it's great because you picked up election. I was going to come to that. We know that he has now suddenly become the party leader and everything. But what does him contesting the elections look like now that he does not have a political background as against Pierre Poilievre, his opponent?
Now, usually not having a political background might help you in this day and age, but I don't know what's more hated by the general population, global banker or politician. So global banker who was advisor to Justin Trudeau isn't the most outsidery thing possible. Now, it is possible to run. You don't need to be like a lifelong public servant and all that. I think it will more come down to, I mean, you would hope policy, but let's be honest, elections aren't fought on too much policy. It's more on emotion. So this will be an anti-Donald Trump election. And it behooves Mark Carney to call an election right now because the longer he stays in Parliament, the more he'll be seen as an appointed dictator. Because, again, he was not, there wasn't a reasonable election. The Liberals, and it's not just the Liberals, okay? Every political party in Canada, the internal party elections are not monitored by Elections Canada. They monitor their own things. So it's like the inmates running asylum. They're all fake. It's third world banana republic stuff when the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP, the Green parties have their own internal party elections. Not even third world. I don't want to insult the third world. Fourth world banana republic nonsense. So that's what we saw here. And Carney's strategy should likely be to call an election soon, spend a week so he gets the honeymoon phase and then go straight to an election. And then if he were smart, he'd run an election purely against Donald Trump. So you're going to see a fascinating Canadian election where the two people, one party's going to run against Donald Trump, the other's going to run against Justin Trudeau, and neither of those two names will be on the ballot. So that's likely going to be the next Canadian election. And we'll see where the Canadian people are, but The recent buffoonery by Donald Trump has given Mark Carney and the Liberals a boost.
Daniel, I think you answered most of it without a question being asked, but I think you pretty much covered up most of whatever is to be kind of dealt with or considered at this point. What happens next, we'll need to wait and watch, because
especially the Canadians, how they look at these elections, we'll have to wait and see.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. That was Daniel Bodman joining us from Toronto.
Thank you for having me.